In the opening pasuk of Parshat Emor, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, say to the Kohanim. And in that very same pasuk, Borei Olam once again repeats the command, say to them. Since there is no redundancy in the Torah, we must decipher the meaning of the repetition. The Torah is teaching us that once Moshe taught the Kohanim the special mitzvot which only they were permitted to perform, he then tells Moshe to repeat the other mitzvot to them as well, because through the performance of the mitzvot, the neshama is elevated and attains a new enhanced state. It therefore follows that when one grows spiritually through the performance of mitzvot, he or she is not simply performing the same mitzvah. Rather, because of one's new heightened spiritual state, one is brought up along with the mitzvah to a much higher level. Allow me the privilege to demonstrate. Visiting Kivrei Tzadikim is a widespread practice among Am Yisrael. Rabbi Leib Baal Hayesurim, one of the prized disciples of Reb Shneir Zalman of Liadi, passed away in Cheshvan roughly 170 years ago. Most people aren't aware that his actual name was Rabbi Leib of Terkish Mohilov, yet due to the incredible suffering he endured in his lifetime, he became widely known as the Baal Hayesurim. Reb Leib was one of the first Chabad Hasidim to settle in Hebron, but towards the end of his life he moved to Tzfat and lived out his final years. It was there that he passed away, and it is there that he is buried. Before his passing, he announced that anyone who finds himself in a time of distress, he or she should come to his grave, prostrate themselves, and complete the entire Sefer of Tehillim. And so it is until this very day, our brothers and sisters amongst Am Yisrael, when beset with pain and sorrow, travel to his kever and finish the Sefer of Tehillim. This astonishing and twice verified story surrounds a particular matmid from Bnei Brak who had a daughter that was getting on in age and was yet to find her zivug. They decided to take the journey. He and his wife boarded the bus in Bnei Brak, and while on the way to Tzfat, experienced an unusually strong snowstorm. His wife, knowing that the north can be treacherous in heavy snow, decided to return home, while her husband stayed true to the mission and he pressed on. Hours later, fighting the wind and snow flurries, he found his way to the Beit HaChayim in Tzfat. But the visibility was so poor, he found himself circling and circling without success. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots a man swaying by a grave while clutching a Sefer Tehillim. Assuming that this man was standing by the Baal Hayesurim, he begins to fervently read Tehillim for next to 2 hours, and he completes the Sefer. And notices that the man had just completed the Sefer as well, who was sitting right next to him. At this point, the entire mountain in Tzfat was blanketed in snow, and he had lost his whereabouts. He turned to the gentleman next to him and says, excuse me, but do you know which way is to the bus stop to Bnei Brak? Certainly, come, I'll show you. I'm walking that way. The two walked through the very thick snow and ultimately reached the bus stop. The matmid turned to thank the fellow, but he was nowhere to be found. It was as though he vanished in a puff of smoke. He arrives home, he tells his wife the entire story, to which she laughed, she chuckled, and she says, maybe it was Eliyahu HaNavi. Days passed, and the incident was still troubling him. Yet when he conversed with his wife, she simply chided him and declared, it was a blizzard. You likely didn't see him walk away anyway. Well, the matmid decided this warrants a visit to Reb Shmuel Vosner, and recounted what his experience was in Tzfat and his suspicion that he was visited by a malach from Shemayim. It was a davar yadua. It was well known at the time that Reb Vosner never got excited by these stories and simply told him that likely due to the snowstorm and the poor visibility, you likely didn't see him leave. When the matmid heard Reb Vosner's opinion, he then made a conscious decision to forget the entire incident and move on. Interestingly enough, however, the following morning, there was an intense knock on his front door, and there stood a young man. Reb Vosner sent me to bring you to him right away. The matmid hustled to Reb Vosner, and he stood there trembling in front of the Posek Hador, who went on to say, I need to apologize to you because what I shared with you yesterday was incorrect. It was not Eliyahu Hanavi, but rather the Baal Hayesurim himself. The Posek Hador, Reb Shmuel Vosner, continued, I asked you to come to me first thing this morning, as last night I had a dream, and I was visited by none other than Rabbi Leib Baal Hayesurim. Reb Leib told me that he was given special permission from Shemayim to appear before you after your incredible Mesirut Nefesh in coming to pray by his grave in the midst of a snowstorm. He stood next to you and he completed the Sefer Tehillim by your side in order that you shouldn't be left alone in the Beit HaHayim. He was furthermore allowed to accompany you to the bus stop, but that was as far as they would allow him to go. He went on to tell me that your daughter will be engaged in the next few months. Bekach Hava. After years of dead end DOA shidduchim, his daughter met a wonderful young man and was very happily engaged. Although the Vosner Mishpacha is meticulously private, this particular story was difficult to keep under the covers, as it surfaced and was later published in a small sefer entitled Velo Shevet Halevi Bilavad. The tefillot of Am Yisrael, our tefillot, are highly coveted by Kudsha Baruch Hu. Our supplications, our prayers, poured out by the graves of Tzaddikim, interlaced with true Mesirut Nefesh, are answered in ways that we couldn't possibly fathom. Of course, it's much easier to stay within our comfort zone and settle for mediocrity, but true growth, real growth in tefillah and avodat Hashem comes from pushing beyond our limits and challenging ourselves to ascend. Shabbat Shalom u'mevorach.